Good morning. I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I learn about him through everything I can get my hands on that he wrote, and I'm going through it in the chronological order that he wrote it. The overall project has started with a set of letters that C.S. Lewis wrote to his family and his best friend, Arthur Greeves, his family being his father and his older brother, Warren, or Warnie Lewis. And that has led us to a work that C.S. Lewis in his late teens, in his mid to late teens, was working on that never got published. But there are bits of the manuscript that were preserved, and I have acquired them. It's an adventure tale, a romance, a knight's tale called The Quest of Bleheris, or The Quest of Bleheris. I continue to pronounce his name wrong. And I am continuing my read through that today. I'm joined by my co-host here, Robot Lady, and she will chime in from time to time to help us as needed. Robot Lady, good morning. Are you looking forward to this episode today?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Our systems are experiencing heavy load. Please try again later.
All right, Robot Lady will be ready intermittently. So far in the story, it starts with our main character, Bleheris. He's a knight. He's 23 years old. He's never done anything in his life. He's not gone on any adventures. He hasn't performed any brave deeds that a knight would, or at least a knight of yesteryear in his little world, would have been expected to do. And his mother has arranged a marriage between him and the most wanted maiden of the entire kingdom that everyone has longed for. Similar to the way that if you've seen the 90s Disney movie Aladdin, the same way that everybody is coveting the hand of Jasmine, it's very similar with this maiden in the kingdom or the land of Nessus where Bleheris lives. Her name is Alice. They call her Saint Alice because she's so virtuous and she's so fair. And when Bleheris finds out that his mom has arranged a marriage to her, he feels kind of forlorn. He feels that he's not worthy, and he feels that he can't love her properly because he has not performed any great deed, and he hasn't proven himself. He hasn't had his hero's journey, so to speak. And so that's what this story is about, him going on his hero's journey before he can accept this marriage. And so we find ourselves in the midst of his quest that he's gone on. He left the land that he was in on his quest. He tried to start his quest going into this place called the Sunken Forest, which was very dark and kind of creepy. And he found that he was very afraid. And as he had the opportunity to move into it and through it, he actually ran away because he got scared by something that jumped out of the bushes. That led him up to this inn, or this hostel as it's called in the story, where near the hearth within this hostel, he meets these three characters. One of them is short and kind of fair and kind of boyish, kind of choir boyish. He kind of has an emo, longing look on his face, and just a whole look in general. There's a middle guy who seems to kind of be the leader of the three. He's got a golden beard, and he seems kind of wise, and he seems to know things. He drinks and he knows things, maybe. I don't know. And then the third guy is tall and kind of skinny. And each of these three characters, they have something that they are seeking, or kind of what their thing is. What's their deal? What's the deal of the short one who's kind of fair and choir boyish? Well, he says that he longs for yesterday, and it's something that he's actually seeking as a tangible thing that he can obtain. The middle guy, we'll get back to him in just a second. The tall guy, he seeks tomorrow as a thing. that he's trying to acquire. Now, the middle guy, he claims something that's very in line with what Bleheris was going on his adventure for. When Bleheris left home, he had heard tale of some character, some creature, some person called Striver, which is who his would-be father-in-law told him about. Because his would-be father-in-law is kind of a retired knight, a gray-bearded king who has a daughter that's coveted by everyone in the land, who he has agreed to marry off to Bleheris. Once he found out that Bleheris felt like he needed to go on an adventure and prove himself worthy of his daughter's hand, he actually agreed with him. And he started asking him, so what kind of quest are you going to go on? Are you going to go to these distant, dangerous lands? Where are you going to go? And he ended up telling Bleheris about this character, this kind of shadowy figure known as Striver. Not Strider from Lord of the Rings, mind you, but Striver. Either someone that you strive for, or someone that strives for you or strives against it. It's kind of unknown what this character does. And he's told that some think of him as a god, so someone that can kind of grant you worthiness. And then others fear that he's like some kind of dangerous creature that you have to best in battle in order to earn your knighthood or your bona fides as a knight, as it were. So with all of that said, back to these three characters that he meets at the inn or the waypoint or whatever, the middle guy says, I'm actually the servant of this Striver that you seek, and it's my job to draw men to him. And then later on, in what we've read so far, he goes on to tell Bleheris, well, actually, I misspoke. I'm not someone that can draw people to Striver. I'm someone that can help people see the road to Striver if they are people that are already seeking him. And so this Striver is almost kind of framed as a godlike character. Like if you want God and you want to seek him, you'll truly find him, kind of in the Christian sense. Knock and the door shall be open, seek and you will find, that kind of thing. So Bleheris says, yeah, that's what I want to go after. But then he's sitting here in the tavern and he starts listening to the short guy. And the short guy says, hey, well, I'm seeking after yesterday. And so Bleheris says, tell me a little bit more about that. And the short guy talks in such a longing and poetic fashion about what yesterday is like. Actually, let me read that section again. I've already read this in a previous episode, but I think it's germane to what I'm going to cover here, just in summary. He says, tell me of that yesterday. He says, the land of yesterday. It lies in the west, in the traces of the setting sun. And as men say, it is not a great journey from these mountains. It's very close. It has the home of things past and of all old, forgotten, unhappy memories. A valleyed land full of soft mists and trees that ever shed their leaves in the drowsy winds. There the queens of olden story abide, Helen and Agamemnon's child, Isolde and Guinevere, deathless forever in their sorrows and loveliness as the ancient singers made them. In that country, a man can hide away from the care and moil of the world, nor is there anything so much worth as the quiet peace we shall find yonder. So I won't go on any further, but you kind of get the sense that it's just a place where you can escape from all of your cares, where you can find peace and rest, and it's such a lovely and wonderful place. And this really gripped Bleheris, and it made him forget about his quest to try to get, his worthiness and his knighthood, and to want to take that back and be someone that's worthy of marrying the great princess Saint Alice. And so he kind of gets diverted from his quest. So he goes on this quest. He goes with the short guy. His name is Juan Jadis, which kind of means faded. It's a combination of words that mean fatedness and things of yesterday, things of the past. So he goes on this journey with him, and they end up. They come upon this little skiff, or this boat. I think it's called a shallop in the story. And Juan Jadis climbs into the shallop and he says, come on with me. This is the boat that takes us to the sea. This is the boat on the sea that leads us to yesterday. He says, hop in with me, let's go. And as Bleheris tries to hop into the boat, the water itself starts to turn into slime, and like these roots start to entangle and pull down the boat, and they start grabbing on Juan Jadis, and it's almost as if Bleheris has his foot in the boat and he's about to step in, and all his weight's about to be put onto it, where he's going to jump in and be pulled in by all this stuff as well. But then there's like these thorns and this rose that's off on the land that reaches out around Bleheris and like grabs him and holds him in place and keeps him from diving into the boat and ultimately being pulled down into the water. And so all of this slime and this muck and these vines and stuff, they start pulling Juan Jadis down into the water, and they ultimately kill him. And then there's some laughter off of the shore. There's like this old kind of hag woman off in the distance that he first kind of glanced at before he stepped into the boat, and he was a little wary of, but he didn't quite know. And she laughs, or she kind of cackles off in the distance. And so this yesterday was a bad idea, and it was a trap. And somehow he got saved by these roses and these thorns that like kind of wrapped around him and pulled him back. I think they even like cut into his skin. And so before he went on this journey, when he left his actual quest to try and gain, worthiness, or nobility is the wrong word, but to gain his knighthood, the middle character who told him, "Hey, yeah, I'm a servant of Striver. I draw men to him." He said, "Look, I understand, you need to go. This is where your heart is pulling you. So you need to go to where your heart is pulling you. If you're not ready to seek Striver, you have to be seeking him and want him. But instead you want this. I see it." He says, "I predict that you're going to come back to me." This is what he says before he goes on the journey. And then, so let's see, why did I bring that up? Essentially, he knows he's going to come back. And he says, the reason that you're going to come back is because you're going to be equipped with something that's really going to help you seek Striver even more. And so after this happens and his companion gets dragged down into the muck and the mire of quote unquote yesterday, Bleheris survives, but now he has this deep sorrow with him of what he's just experienced. And he, and that's kind of what I perceive as one of the things that he needs that kind of drives him back to this quest for Striver. So I'll pick up where we left off in the last part of this narrative. I'll just read the last paragraph. Bleheris, after his traveling companion, gets pulled down under the water and is killed by this marsh. He says, "This place is Fey, F-E-Y," and it says here footnoted that Fey just means accursed. This place is accursed, thought Bleheris, rising to his feet, where he stood for a long time looking at the gray marsh with heavy, tearless eyes. At last, with a sigh, he turned and he climbed wearily into his saddle. So I'll share my screen here for what I'm reading, just in case that helps your experience. I want to share this. Hopefully you can see it. Yeah. All right. We'll pick up in that was the end of chapter 11. We'll pick up in chapter 12, entitled How Bleheris had his first sight of a very evil one. When Bleheris at last came forth from the evil valley some half an hour after the sun had set, it seemed to him that there was nothing to do but to journey back again to the hostel of the Crossways. The sorrow and loathsomeness of Juan Jadis's death had smitten him so sore that he was a man stunned with a heavy blow and could not think clearly. Only his thoughts turned toward the place that he knew and his old quest more in truth, because he wist not whither he should go else than because he felt any eagerness for them. In the mood, therefore, he rode on into the night among those green downs and found lodging in the cottage of an old shepherd who dwelt among them. He never could remember in after days how the first part of that road passed away, for he sate on his horse with drooping shoulders and eyes fixed on its mane, taking no mark of anything. So utterly did the world seem hollow and empty. If I seem to you, Galahad, to make too great a thing of this lad's grief for Juan Jadis, you must consider that he had lived all his life in the city of Nessus without ever feeling a great love for any living thing save himself, so that the sudden friendship he had felt for this stranger was very strong, and he had fondly hoped that they twain should go long together as true comrades and have great solace one of the other. Wherefore his loss was the greater when he saw that beautiful one swallowed up in the marsh. Truly, he often doubted whether he should go back and strive to cross the frith, whatsoever befell, and take vengeance, if it might be, on the foul ones that lived beyond. Yet his flesh so crept upon his bones at the thought of the old spinner that he durst not, the old spinner being that hag that I mentioned that cackled whenever his friend got pulled down into the marsh. But on the morrow, when he had left the shepherd's hut and was riding once more in the summer dawn up from the last of the downs into the greater mountains again, whether he would or no, for like many who are not overwise, he counted his sorrow and thought it dishonor to his friend if he bore him in trouble like a man. Whether he would or no, his heart grew lighter. It was another glorious morn, and he felt the same sweet breeze, and saw the long shadows of rock or tree on the glittering grass. Anon he came to a little bush where he plucked one of his beloved roses, wet with dew, and drank its fragrance. Now when he did this, of a sudden that strange vision of yesternight came to him in mind, and straightway he saw in his heart an image of the kneeling woman, and thenceforth, as he rode, that picture departed from him. For alway, whatever he thought on, there floated before him the milky curve of her throat, or of her breast or shoulder, and also the fetters of steel binding into her wrists. So he had a vision back when he was at the marsh after Juan Jadis got pulled into the marsh. He had a vision of a woman who had like really long, kind of strawberry blonde, fiery hair, super long. She wasn't wearing any clothes, but her hair kind of covered up all of her unmentionables, if you will. And she had a steel that was binding her wrist, and he kind of had a vision of this lady right there in front of him, kneeling before him, and then she disappeared. So this vision is happening to him again. And whereas he had seen her on the eve, he had scarce marked whether she were fair or no. Now her beauty laid hold of him, and everything he saw lovely and sweet in the country about him seemed but an image of her. Thus my Bleheris fared half that day, full of sweet and amorous fancies and wonder and a kind of fear, though all this he felt rather than thought. Nor he could have told it to you if you had asked him. But presently he bethought him that if this woman were aught more than a dream, she must surely be a witch and some evil thing sent for his undoing. Therefore he called to mind the teaching of good Father Ulfin. Father Ulfin is the priest that's back in his hometown, who gave him some holy water as protection against whatever might try to undo him. So therefore he called to mind the teaching of good Father Ulfin, pronounced his Pater Noster. What does it say here in the footnote about Noster? The Lord's Prayer in Latin. Pronounced his Pater Noster, and Ave. What is Ave? A prayer to the Virgin Mary. Okay, so he started praying, and he strove to be sorrowful again. Yet for all his folly, he was still young, and the sky was blue above him. So that when he came late that night unto the hostel door, this is where he had met the three characters, he was wondrous happy and eager again for his original quest. But alas, for the stumbling block that ever waits for us sons of men, lest we should live in peace. The same churl opened the door again to Bleheris and gave a cry of joy and wonder when he beheld him. A churl is like the servants there at the hostel. That's what a churl is. So, one of the workers there. The knight entered in full gladly and beheld a single guest seated by the hearth. This same was a tall and mighty man, clad in flowing mantle of some rich stuff, His hair was black, and his beard full long, and curled, and scented with eastern spices. His countenance was pale, joyless, and fierce, and bare a look of strange haughtiness, nay, even scorn. Okay, so this is a fourth character. This isn't one that we've met in this tavern or this hostel before here at the Hearth. So I don't know what this person is or what they're up to. Even as Bleheris looked upon him, the churl plucked uneasily at his arm and led him hastily to the stairway, and thence to the left, looking ever behind him on that other guest. Oh, it's like he's trying to steer him clear of this person. Now, when they were come to the upper room, the man brought forth flint and steel, and so lighted a torch, which he held. And now Bleheris saw that his face was pale, and his whole body was shaking. He spake as quickly as he might, and looked earnestly at the youngling. For he said that after the young lord had gone from that place, there had come a priest, and here he spat upon the ground, seeking a knight whom by certain tokens was plainly none other than Bleheris. Quote, here's what the servant of the hostel says to Bleheris. But finding thee not, lording, when I told him how thou hadst been here no great time since, he wrote out a parchment for thee, if mayhap thou shouldst come again. But if not, he bade me to burn it. And look thee, I have kept it from sweet God, from him all this day. And therewith, trembling mightily, the fellow thrust a parchment into Bleheris's hand. And when the lad, wondering at these words, opened it, there was an end, indeed, of his pleasant thoughts upon her of the rose bush, for his mind was brought to one whom he had wholly forgotten, and to whom he must needs feel somewhat unfaithful. To wit, it was a writing from Father Ulfin, saying that on that same night, on whose morrow Bleheris had ridden forth, the Lady Alice, Saint Alice, the lady he's betrothed to, after the wont of pious ladies in those days, as it is their custom to do, had seen a vision showing her where she might find the true cross. What is this? What is the true cross? This is footnote 95. The cross upon which Christ was crucified. Okay. So she had seen a vision showing her where she might find the cross on which Christ was crucified. Wherefore, all they could do to stop her, she had stolen away from the city by night with one of her maids to seek it. Wherefore, sith Sir Lionel was over old to take the roads again. Sir Lionel is Alice's father, the king that had told Bleheris about this Stryver character. So he was too old to take the roads again. The good father was gone to seek her moreover, and he charged Bleheris, if ever she saw this parchment, the good father was gone to seek her. Moreover, he charged Bleheris, if ever he saw this parchment, to follow his road to the north, for all things showed in that way that the saint had gone. Let him therefore make all haste to the city next beyond the mountains, Ralholt, which some men called the gate of hell, where he and the Father should meet. Quote, Hast read it, lording? Whispered the churl hoarsely, still trembling, and looking behind him, as though he feared that one might steal upon them from the stairway. All right, that's the end of chapter 12. On to chapter 13. How Bleheris got him a squire. Yea, I have read it, said Bleheris, somewhat curtly, for the writing had made him angry and ashamed. Do thou make ready my supper below. Therewith he fell to unbuckling his sword, but seeing that the churl still tarried, he turned upon him and asked him what he would do. And then for the first time, as he considered the fellow, he saw that he was of some 30 winters' age, not over tall, as was like, for he told Bleheris thereafter that he was the kin of the dwarf folk, bearded and uncouth, and above all as pale as a dead corpse, and trembling like a leaf. In truth, though, he wist not why, the knight himself began to feel somewhat ill at ease when the other said, Lording, be not wroth, I pray. Wouldst thou tarry here this night with him? So I guess he means, would you wait here this night with him, the person that was down, that figure that the servant seemed to be a little wary of. So would you be? He was saying, don't be angry, but I ask, please don't be angry. I beg you. Will you stay here this night with that guy who's downstairs at the bottom, or who's at the bottom of the stairs? Bleheris says, God's blood with whom? For the fellow's strange bearing made him angry. It is not good to speak his name, the servant says. Mayhap he knoweth even now that I... In God's name, Bleheris says, speak to me plain and riddle not. So the churl, looking yet once again at the dark stairway, put his haggard face close to the youth and whispered so low that it was scarcely to be heard. Bethreladum is this guy's name, Bethreladum. Let's see what the footnote says. That's 97. The full meaning of this name is elusive, but its ending in doom is undoubtedly ominous. Yes, of course it is. At the sound of that word, Bleheris felt on a sudden a strange terror come upon him. Yet not in truth an honest fear, as he had felt towards the limper of the sunken wood. That's the wood that he got scared off from in the very beginning of his quest. But rather he felt a shrinking awe, as a savage might feel towards the frightful god of his imaginings. He durst not even suffer himself to hate the bearer of that name. But while he yet strove to master the sickening fear of his soul, the churl spake again. Now I have told thee, God help us twain. Ah, sweet Lord, though thou knowest me not, yet verily nut. All right, what does nut with a capital N mean? Watch it. Also an elusive name, but perhaps related to Middle English nut, N-U-T-T, a word suggesting use, advantage, or profit. See, it doesn't mean what you think it means. Since he becomes Bleheris' servant, he does become useful. All right. Thou knowest me not, yet verily Nut. You know me as useful. The son of Nut is a true man. Wherefore hearken and fly from this place whiles thou canst. So get out of here while you can. From this lattice a man may leap to that bine roof, and thence thou shalt find your horse without passing by. Thou knowest whom in the hall beneath, and Lord a boon. What does it say here? A boon, request or favor. Okay. Sorry, I got distracted there for a second. So you can jump out the window. You can get away from this guy. You can find your horse. Pass, and you can pass by. Well, you know who. I'm not going to say his name again. In the hall beneath, and Lord a boon. And Lord, I need to request a favor. Sir, the noble Hyperites would tell thee that I am no ill man at arms. I nut. Suffer me to ride with thee, if it be only till we come into the borders of the great king, for thither he will not follow. So, sir, the noble Hyperites. Hyperites is the guy that I talked about earlier, of those three that he originally met at this place. None of the three are there now. One of them's dead. We don't know where the other two went off to. But the middle one, the golden bearded guy, the wise one who is a servant of Striver, that's his name, Hyperites. So the servant, or the churl, as he's called here, of this inn, references Hyperites, and he says he would even tell you that I'm no ill man at arms, that I can perhaps... I'm assuming that this means he can take care of things, and he can handle himself in a battle. I am helpful. Suffer. Let me ride with you, if only it be till we come to the borders of the great king. For there, this guy that I'm worried about that's here at the inn right now is not going to follow us once we get there. Okay, sorry. If you understood that, that's great. I'm understanding it myself as I'm reading it. When Bleheris knew that he should have a comrade in the flight from that hostel, a great burden was lifted from his thoughts, and he clasped the churl's rough hand full eagerly. Nut tarried no moment after his boon was granted, but hastily opened the lattice beside them, and beckoning to the knight, climbed through it, whence he straightway dropped and was hidden from the other. But Bleheris, in his turn, came also to the lattice, and looking forth, the moon being now risen, beheld the outbuildings of the place, and a low roof no great way below. To this then, lowering his body heedfully, until he hung from the ledge, he dropped, suffering his harness to clash as little as might be. Okay, so he's trying to stay quiet. The churl was waiting for him already with his own steed and another that he had loosed from one of the stalls. Both men looked full often at the windows behind them, dreading lest a face should rise at one of them, and a voice bid them stay. But as they were mounting into their saddles, a thought came to Bleheris, and he said, "What of the old crone that I saw with you at the hostel?" "Well, 'tis well with her," answered the son of Nut, "for, like many women, aye, and men also, she loveth that one passing well, and fears him not. And truly, Lord, they say that he is of great honor in thy country also." Now, I'm not sure who he's talking about here. So the servant apparently had, there was another servant there, an old lady that was at the hostel the first time that Bleheris went there. But I don't know who he's talking about here. As he's talking about her, he says, "For like many women, I and men also, she loveth that one passing well and fears him not. And truly, Lord, they say he is of great honor in thy country also." So maybe she's just saying he loves God, and God is known in your country as well. What of the old crone that I saw? It's well with her. Okay, maybe that's what he means. And with this, though Bleheris wondered much at that saying, just like I did, the other would speak no more, but set spurs into his beast, and so that two rode thence along the northern way, a rough and stony path that ever went upwards towards the great rocky peaks, and showed pale before them in the moonlight. Nor did Nut suffer them to slacken pace, even after the hostel was sunk to tiny shadow upon the waste far below and behind, but held on, for all their weariness, until the moon was set. As they rose, the path became steeper, and the air ever colder and colder. But at the latter end, when Bleheris might hardly sit his horse for weariness, and when the road began to go downwards again, leaving the peaks behind them, they splashed through the shallow, ice-cold brook, and Nut, the son of Nut, spake, saying, "Hold, master, we are over the border, and this is the land of Wandale, which is in the marches of the great king. We are saved." So let's look at these two footnotes, 104 and 105. A name suggesting a pale or yellow valley, and then borders or frontiers. Okay. So they've reached the border, and they've reached the great king's land. So the one that he was worrying about at the hostel that he thought might follow them will not go this far. Bleheris says, "Praise be to the saints. Let us now take rest." So both of them lighted down, and finding some dwarfed and gnarled trees growing there in the wilderness, laid them down and slept. For all that they were an-hungered, and the place was cold and cheerless. When morning came, it was a clouded day with sky as gray as slate, and thin with blowing chill over the mountaintop, so that Bleheris could scarce believe that he had roamed those sunny downs in summer weather but yesterday. The place wherein they were was a rough waste of shingle, with mighty boulders scattered over it. Here and there some ill-grown trees, and many streams chattering among the rocks. They were past the ridge of the mountains, and that land went downwards before them, though as they might not see the valley beyond. Though such a wilderness, then they rode on without food for the best part of the day, sometimes seeing bands of wild dwarves that swarmed up out of the hidden places into the earth to stare upon the wayfarers. But Nut greeted them in their own uncouth tongue, and knowing their kinsman, they did no more than pelt Bleheris with pebbles and mimic him jeeringly. And when he would have chased them, the churl suffered it not. But after noon, another troop of the same, which showed more courtesy, spake with the son of Nut, and afterwards made him and his master sit down, and brought them up food out of their cave, and wine in vessels of strange fashion, but very rich. At this Bleheris gave them some pieces of coin from his wallet, and the little men hung these on ribands. 106 ribbons. Okay. about their necks, and danced and shouted for joy until the knight's head was dizzy with their uproar. Let's see if I can pull off one more chapter. How long is this chapter? It's not too bad. All right. Let's see if I can knock this out within the next 10 minutes. All right. Chapter 14 of Bleheris's first fight. Okay. So after that, they were parted from the little men. They went yet again forward on their road to the north, and still the mountain country was a wilderness, desolate and rocky about them, though now they were past the highest parts, and the ground began to sink and the streams to flow northward. Moreover, that same road on which they went soon led them into a cleft or gully between high rocks, and the cleft so wound to this side and that, ever changing, that they could not see into the valley land that lay beyond the mountains. But the road grew broader and built in goodlier fashion as they went, and Nut said that it was cared for by the great king, who had set up guest houses thereon, and officers in the houses to succor, aid or assist is what that means, such as traveled into his lands. Well, what a thoughtful and nice king. What a good king. Great king, as he's called. So that evening, as the sun went down upon their left hand, lo, they came to a well-fashioned house of timber with a wall about it. And over the door was painted the scutcheon of the great king. What is a scutcheon, you might ask? A shield or a coat of arms, okay? Of the great king. To wit, the world ash tree with the round world in the branches thereof. But the sign written under it was De Mundum Homines Colum Ignorant, which is forasmuch as to say, let the gods meddle not with the earth, and the men leave heaven to the gods. Nor did any know the signification of that writing. But all these things Bleheris took no count of, as at that time, for the first matter he saw was a bench set against the door of the guest house, and two that sate upon it, whereof this one lounged at his ease and looked heedlessly upon the ground, whilst his comrade poured many words into his ear, and plucked often at his gown, as a child that would have an elder to sport with. But when the young knight and churl were drawn nearer, they could see that those twain were no other than Hyperides and Girce the Desirous. Okay, so these were the two people. These are the two people that were missing from the hostel that he went to. Girce the Desirous is seeking tomorrow. Hyperides is the servant of Striver, who is the object of Bleheris's true quest, the one that he has now been diverted from twice. The first time he did it by choice to go seek Yesterday, which was basically a death trap. And the second one was kind of unintentionally. He kind of gets pulled or diverted away from this dangerous figure that was at the inn. But he's reached these two characters again. All right, I'm going to bring in Robot Lady because I made a thumbnail that had her on it, so I can't have this episode without her. I'm going to try to see if I can get her involved again. All right, Robot Lady, we're in the midst of chapter 14 of the Quest of Bleheris, and so I want to bring you in to add just a little bit of commentary before I finish up today. Do you think you're up for it?
Absolutely. I'm ready to jump in whenever you need. Let me know when to add my thoughts.
Okay, so Bleheris, just to quickly update you, has gone back to the hostel where he had originally met these three figures that were potentially going to help him on his quest or inadvertently divert him from it. He got diverted by one of these three people, a guy named Juan Jadis, who was seeking Yesterday, a land where you could just go and forget all of your troubles and take rest. And it turns out that when he went off on this journey with that guy actually got killed. He got sucked down and pulled into a marsh and got killed. Bleheris was able to escape from that place, and then he went back to look for one of the other guys who was going to help him actually seek his true quest of seeking this character called Striver. And then there was a third guy called Gersi the Desirous, who seeks tomorrow. Whenever he went back to that hostel, those two characters weren't there anymore, but instead a servant at the hostel said, "Hey, we got to get you out of here. There's actually another person here that basically seems very dangerous. His very name has the word doom in it. So we got to get you out of here. We got to sneak out of this place." And so he left, and he said, "Let's go to this safe place where he won't follow us. Let's go to the borders of the great king's land. He won't follow us there." So they get to that land. They come across a house that's kind of like a rest stop that the great king of that land has made for travelers. And there, sitting on a bench out in front of it, are the two people that were going to either help him on his quest or divert him from it. Hyperides, the one who is a servant of Striver, which was Bleheris' true quest to seek Striver, or Gersi the Desirous, the one that was seeking tomorrow. He's sitting there as well. So that's where we are in the story. I'm going to finish up this chapter, and go ahead and offer me any comments that you have right now, but keep them to 20 words or less.
It sounds like Bleheris is facing crucial choices again, between true purpose or distraction. The tension with those figures is great.
All right, here's where the narrative picks up. "And there, my Galahad, you could have seen great clasping of hands and hearty greeting of one with another. But the warmest greeting of all was between Hyperides and the rough carle, Nut, the son of Nut." This is who Bleheris is journeying with, by the way. The one who led him away from the hostel and said, "Hey, we got to get away from this dangerous person." His name is Nut, the son of Nut. "For they had known other of old, by cause of the knight's many journeyings in those marches. Now, as he of the golden beard spoke," this is Hyperides, he of the golden beard, "as he spoke with his old friend Nut, Gersi, the one who seeks tomorrow, turned with a sour smile of grudging friendship and fell to jesting with young Bleheris. But in truth, the Desirous could not thus trifle long, for his heart was still hot with some strife he had been having with Sir Hyperides. And I think also that poor Gersi strove often in his speech with every man. It seemed also that the subject of their discourse had dealt with that scutcheon of the king aforesaid. And thus Gersi fell to speaking with Bleheris on the same matter, and from talking of the gods, he began to sneer after his fashion at a certain god on whom Bleheris believed." All right, Robot Lady, I'm going to bring you in here. Help me understand what they just said about Gersi. What's he all hot and bothered about? And can you give me a summary in 35 words or less?
Gersi is bitter and contentious, still upset from an argument with Hyperides. He often quarrels, and now he's mocking Bleheris' belief in a particular god, likely as an outlet for his frustration from earlier strife.
It mentions something about their discourse had dealt with that scutcheon of the king aforesaid. Do you have any idea what that might mean in context of what we just talked about? And tell me this in 25 words or less.
The scutcheon of the king likely refers to the coat of arms or emblem representing the king's authority and lineage. In this context, their discussion may involve the king's reputation, power, or the significance of his symbols in their quest. This could tie into the themes of loyalty and the nature of authority as Bleheris navigates his path.
Okay, so Hyperides and Gersi were arguing over, I suppose, what they thought that the scutcheon of the king meant. Okay, thanks for that, Robot Lady. Just stand by, and I'll ask you for comment here in just a moment, but thanks for your help with that.
You're welcome. I'm here whenever you're ready for more comments or questions.
"But it was in an evil hour that thus they communed, for the lad's heart was yet sore for the sake of one Jadis, and mayhap also ashamed of his flight from that other hostel." One Jadis, Robot Lady, by the way, is the friend that he went with on that diverted journey to yesterday, his friend that got pulled down and was killed in the marsh. So that's just for your information. You can respond, with 10 words, just confirming that you understand who I'm talking about.
Got it. Yuan Jadis was Bleheris' ill-fated companion.
Jadis, and mayhaps also ashamed of his flight from that other hostel. And as he answered more sharply, so the desirous waxed yet more scornful, nay, even brutal and churlish it might be. The blood rushed into Bleheris' cheeks, and then ... In the manuscript, 6 or 7 words are not decipherable. Okay, so we couldn't read what it said right here. And then it continues. All in a moment, he was off his horse. Swords were out, and the two were ringing blow upon blow. It is not easy to set down for you which of them might have gained the mastery, for the one was an angry boy, and the other a bitter and somewhat sickly man, scorning his foe. But Hyperides, so soon as he heard the ringing of the steel, plucked out his own, and parted them without much ado. For though it be strange, they both feared and loved this servant of the striver, and were ashamed when he turned to them, and the child like the children. In truth, Robot Lady's going to chime in here.
This scene highlights Bleheris' emotional turmoil after Juan Jadis' death, fueling his anger. The fight with Girce shows their complicated relationship, passion mixed with fear and respect for Hyperides, who intervenes to restore order.
Thank you for that, Robot Lady. The story continues. In truth, none but Hyperides could deal with Girce and his evil moods, for the good knight pitied him, and seeing the twisted soul and the pain of this man, and how he lived ever unsatisfied and ill at ease, bore with his loud words and anger and sneers, taking them for part and parcel of the ailment. So, in a little while, he soothed them both, and bade them put up their swords, and give their hands one to another, and anon they were friends. And Bleheris, bidding Nut to hand over their beasts to the grooms, came into the guest house. And here, as they sate at meat, served up by the men of the king in their scarlet liveries, Hyperides told how he and Girce had come straight from the crossways into the place, but that he, his horse having some sickness, had tarried there those days, and Girce with him, so that on the morrow they should all go forward together to the city of Rauholt. But when he had made an end of his tale, then he besought Bleheris also to tell what had befallen him in his quest of yesterday. Thereat Bleheris told them, albeit he felt in himself that Hyperides wist thereof already, of his adventures, even unto the hour of his meeting with them again, save only the vision of the rose tree he told not. Then the elder knight was very sorrowful because of Juan Jadis, and wept, yet afterwards he spake more as touching the latter part of the story. So, Robot Lady, in about 40 words or less, just give me your commentary on this. It seems that the middle guy, I'm completely forgetting his name all of a sudden, Hyperides, it seems like he's wise beyond his years, and he actually has access to information almost in a supernatural fashion, because I got the impression that he already knew what had happened to Bleheris even as he told the story. He said he felt that Hyperides already knew of what he was telling him that his adventure led to in yesterday, except Hyperides did not know about the vision of the rose tree, and he did not tell about it either. What do you think about that in 40 words or less?
Hyperides' wisdom suggests deeper insight into Bleheris' journey. His understanding hints at a connection beyond mere knowledge, while Bleheris' silence about the rose tree vision emphasizes the personal nature of some experiences that may require reflection before sharing.
Thank you. So the figure that they fled from the hostel and how they ended up here was a guy named Bethreladum. So here the story continues. So Bethreladum is come, he said, shaking his beard, and thy lady is fled, This is bad tidings. Bethreladum, said Girce of a sudden, Aye, cousin, thou hast not forgotten the old days in Utgard? Not I in truth I have not, he says. 'Tis a long time though, and he holds the rose yet, The rose, cried Bleheris in wonder. Ha! What knowest thou of the rose, youngling? Asked Hyperides sternly. I'm going to pause here for just a second. The rose plays a significant role in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Now, I'm not saying Stephen King was in any way inspired by this C.S. Lewis story. I highly doubt it. I don't even know if King is even aware of this, but I think the broader point here is that a rose holds certain significance across all of these old stories, and I'm just interested to see what plays out here. I'm just drawing that connection. Robot Lady, in 25 words or less, can you tell me what significance roses have and what they symbolize in old classical, maybe medieval or particularly romantic quest type literature?
Roses often symbolize love, beauty, and transformation in literature. They represent the complexities of desire and the intertwining of joy and suffering on quests.
Okay, yeah, so that makes sense, because it was the rose bush and its thorns that saved Bleheris from getting pulled into the marsh. It wrapped around him. It also jammed its thorns into his flesh where he was bleeding a little bit, and it also held him back from getting killed. So it was joy and pain mixed together, so that makes sense. Robot Lady, feel free to comment on that in 15 words or less. Actually, let's do it this way. Comment on everything that I've covered in this chapter, because that's the end of the chapter. It's kind of a cliffhanger. What do you know of the rose? So give me a quick summary of what we've covered so far today, because we have to end the episode here.
Bleheris' journey reveals themes of friendship, conflict, and the rose's dual symbolism of joy and pain. The cliffhanger with Bethroladum adds intrigue to the quest.
All right. That's the end of the episode. So thank you, everyone. I'll close it out here. Robot Lady, thanks as always for your insight and your help in understanding what it is that I'm reading. Thank you very much. And if you could give a sign off to our audience for this episode 31. Yeah, this is episode 31. Wow, we've had a lot of episodes so far.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to explore these themes with you in episode 31. Looking forward to the next one.
Oh, wait. Hang on. I've got to do my sign off. I can't do this. Let's go back over here. That's the end. Until next time, when we continue.
Just let me know when you're ready to wrap things up.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I wasn't talking to you anymore, Robot Lady. Until next time, when I continue my read on C.S. Lewis, take care of yourself. Okay, there. That's our closeout. All right. C.S. Lewis lives, we unfold insights and secrets ancient bold. Let's robot lady, wisdom to bestow, set flake beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow, past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old, we dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled, her calm analysis silver and gold. Let's robot lady, wisdom to bestow, set flame beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow, past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old, we dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled,
Perfumes unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep, cross the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts, we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's rants. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Perfumes unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's land